For this first exercise, we're going to learn how to draw 8 different types of lines. And so if you can draw these types of lines, you pretty much can draw anything. So we'll be learning 8 different types of lines. Most of these are fairly simple. All I'm using is just a felt tip pen to do this. You could also use a small Sharpie, an ultra thin Sharpie as well. That would work. But the first type is what we'll call a simple line. And it's just your standard line. You've drawn it a million times, and it's just a straight line. It could be horizontal, it could be vertical. Go ahead and make clean strokes, long strokes. They can be, some of them could be short, some of them could be long, short, long. But what you do not want to do, you do not want to do this technique where you make a series of small strokes and add them together. Just go ahead and make a full stroke. It could be fat, it could be thin. And so that's the first type of line. So you can practice that one. The second type is called a blip. And the blip is basically a line with a little interrupter in it. And so straight line, zigzag, straight line, zigzag, straight line. Kind of like a heart EKG you might see at the hospital when they're measuring your heartbeat. Sometimes they'll have other types of things on them besides. They could have little U's on them. They could have little squares on them. But basically, line, blip, line. And so these could be straight, they could be arced as well. So that's the second type of line. You can practice that one. The third type we're going to show is the meander. And so this line is basically a little bit of a wavy line or a fuzzy line. And so instead of making a clean straight line, we're kind of making it a little bit wavy. The goal is not to make it wavy like an S, but just a little wavy in there, some variation. And that's good when drawing elements that are associated with nature that aren't necessarily clean and straight. The fourth line type is called the echo. The echo line type. And so this line type is basically a combination line. So you have one line and then you have a second line that parallels that line. They could be straight, they could vary in size. So you could have a thick line here, you could have a thin line beside it, but they basically mirror each other. They could be arcs and then have another arc beside it. But this is a common technique to add emphasis as well. The fifth line type, let me draw its box here, is literally actually called a box. And so again, this is a combination of lines. So most people draw a box in this manner: pin down, down, over, up, over. And what we want to do, we do not want to do it that way. We want to draw it with this method: pin down, pin up. Start the next line, pin down, pin over, and you'll notice there's a little overlap there. Pin down, pin up, pin down, pin up. And so we have some overlaps. Overlaps vary. This just puts a little emphasis on the corners. That's a much more technically professional design type of way to make a box. So always pick up the pen, start the next line. So that's our box. Pretty easy, fairly straightforward. The sixth one, the sixth line type, is called a scallop. And it is basically a series of arcs. Little M's that continue or little U's that continue. And so it's just a way to do a line but yet have a texture on that line. Really easy to do. These could go around a curve if they needed to. And that's a very common technique. All right, if we wanted to, for the next line is actually very similar to that it's a kind of a texture on a line. And so this one is called the accordion. And this is basically zigzag. So the line goes in this direction, it's just zigging and zagging. They could be very tall, they could be short, they could be far apart. And again, you could do this on a curve, or they could lean if you wanted them to lean. And so a series of zigzags. So the accordion. And the last one we're going to do, some people might not call it a line. It's kind of two techniques that I'm going to show here. One is called the bubble, and the other is called pepper. So the bubble is straightforward. It's just a series of small little circles. They don't have to actually be round. And some could overlap, some could be short where there's a little gap there. And then the companion that goes with it is the pepper. And so a series of dots. This can show emphasis or shading or just different techniques there. And so pepper is actually, it's just another version of the bubble. And so those are the 8 basic line types that we want to look at here. If you can practice these and get these down, then you can draw many things. And so we have simple, blip, meander, echo, box, scallop, accordion, and bubble.